Hi, welcome to another TerranScapes video. In this video I want to show you the Imperial Sector that I've been working on, the large 2 boxes of Imperial Sector pieces. And at this stage what I've done is I have base coated all of the buildings in their primary colors and coated the foundation of the bases as well. I thought I would take a moment here to sort of, bring you in and show you one stage of the process so you can see the base colors that I've chosen before any of the additional detail work goes on them and weathering and that sort of thing. I will say that it's been a bit of a journey on airbrushing as well for me. I'm getting a little bit better with managing my airbrush, but it's still some work to be done. And so for those of you out there who are masters of your airbrush, I am I bow to you humbly. If you haven't seen, for instance, Painted, his videos on painting miniatures with his airbrush, it's unbelievable what that man does. So I've made some concessions with my skill level in this process. So you'll notice on some of the edges there's some overspray. Rather than try to go in and mask off a lot of areas and take a lot of time setting that up, I've decided to just go in with a brush and just touch up some areas, and that hasn't happened yet. So what you're seeing is a very raw look at the work in progress, and I'm only going to show you one section of each of the buildings rather than show you the full complete both sides, because they're both basically had the same work done on them. So let's save ourselves some time. So what you see here is the largest building. I decided to go with a sort of a traditional blue color. I've seen this used on a lot of Imperial Sector buildings in the past. You can see some areas still haven't been base coated, like the sandbags, but I figured I'd do all the little bits around it and then come in with a brush and just do that by hand. Taking this away and show you the back. What I've done is I've decided to try something new for the two-tone color scheme, and in fact this building provides a nice example because you can see the base color here on the lower section. What I've decided to do for all of the buildings basically is go for a strong tone on the outside of the building and then take that tone and bring it down to an almost gray for the interior. And what I did then is I base coated the whole thing like that, and then I looked at it and thought it looked a little bit too blue. It was a little pastel-y, if you will, for the Imperium. So what I decided then to do was then to go in and go over the major areas with straight gray and use the base color that I had done it in, which had a lot more blue in it, and use that as, sort of a faux shadow. Let me bring in a little closer and you can probably see that. So I just kind of went in and then hit over the, the center of the walkways with the straight gray and left it with a little bit of the darker blue in between the lines and just kind of hit all the major panels. Now, again, I'm no, master with the airbrush, and I'm not trying to do, zenithal highlighting or anything fancy here. I just wanted to get a little contrast and to break up the overall pastel-y blue to kind of mute that and bring it back more towards an industrial gray. And actually, I think it really helped out and added quite a bit to it. On large, flat areas like this, I just went in lightly and just kind of modeled it with the gray and just sort of broadly shaded some areas to break it up a little bit and not make it look so flat and uniform. And for this second largest building that has the sort of large balcony out front, what I decided to do here was go with a strong dark green. This is a black green from Vallejo. Really nice color. I hope the color comes through on this, but it's just a beautiful, very somber, very dark green. And then follow through with the same motif for the inside that I showed you on the previous building. So what I did is I went in, mixed in that green with a heavy amount of gray, and then went back over it and then highlighted it with the straight gray on the panels, on the floor, and whatnot. There are still a few areas, oh look at that, I missed these. There's still a few things to pick out in some base color before I move forward to the weathering. And there's so many little bits and bobs and whatnot hiding on these things that that's going to take me just a little bit of time of some getting out the pots and really just going through them building by building. But overall I like the way it's come out so far. Of course this is fairly preliminary. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, and I was thinking about this as I was going through, is that, you know, I did pick up a little overspray from the gray along some of these foundational areas, and I realized I don't have to worry about that as much, as these buildings are going to be covered in snow, and I can push a little snow up against there as it would normally drift, and that's going to hide some of my overspray as well. So I realized I've got a lot of flexibility with that, and that's going to save me a little bit of time, as it took me considerably longer to get these areas all base coated than I expected. I kind of figured it'd be real quick with the airbrush, but there's just so much surface area. You know, I'm only showing you less than half of what I've done, so as you can imagine, it takes quite a bit of time to get through all of that. 3, 2, 1. And for the Manufactorum section, I decided to go with a strong dark red. This is, oh gosh, what is this? This is a Hull Red from Vallejo's airbrush line. And it's just a really nice, deep, dark color. Again, of course, I want something very dark as a foundation so I can bring up the highlights pretty easily and have some of those edges pop a little bit. And then what I did for the interior, instead of going with a gray directly mixed into the you know, red paint, which I thought was going to look a little muddy and a little off, I decided to go with a tan and take in some of the red into that tan. So I've done something similar, but a slightly different color scheme on the interior here. And then went over and I took that sort of blended color and then cut a little gray into that to give the, you know, sort of highlight, which is actually a bit more subtle on this building than some of the other buildings. Of course, all these interiors are going to get, you know, all sorts of dirty washes and whatnot, so you're seeing it in a, you know, sort of, you know, right out of this is pre-bombardment, if you will, color scheme. But it gives you a sense of where it's starting and where it will finish. The one thing I haven't done yet is paint this granny grading, and I think I'm just going to go in by hand on that. I think I'm going to pick out a different color than the normal floors, and so that'll have to be done by brush because I don't want to overspray onto that, and taping that all off because there's so many little contours and nooks and crannies for paint to get underneath. I'd rather not deal with that. But that at least gives you an idea of you know, the basic color scheme for the three main, you know, bodies of buildings. And for the power plant, this is the building I haven't quite finished all my base coating on. Because it's got all of these numerous protrusions and things to try to tape off or mask, I decided that what I would do is just trim major areas in black with the airbrush, and then go in, and then I did the body of the building in a slate gray, and I'm going to leave it that color to give it sort of a concrete-esque, you know, look. And then I'm going to go back in and hand paint all of the detail. I might block in, I don't know, some large areas with the brush, but I'm just not at a skill level yet where I feel like I can really get into nooks and crannies comfortably without polluting some nearby areas, as I was trying to, you know, use a card to block areas and whatnot, and still had some leaking going on. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do, though, is pick out most of these details in metals, and then that way it'll have a sort of like real industrial fab kind of look to it, and then this black will be a nice contrast where I can pick out some things in an alternate color scheme, and it'll really pop off and bring a little life to this. That's the plan, at least, and we'll see how that goes as it develops. And lastly, I keep forgetting to mention in previous videos, the customer also wanted me to do some objective markers for the set as well. So what I did is I went through the Pegasus Hobbies materials and kind of assembled a few little techie pieces that were kind of quick and you know, sort of self-contained. I need to put in another coupler there. I haven't done that yet. And obviously I haven't painted any of these yet. But a little platform, something that could sit inside a building, represent, you know, some tech objective that they're fighting over, valuable supplies. This is from my Hearst Arts line of pieces, and I thought those would make nice objective markers for the set as well. So once I get the buildings done, I'll pick out some of these smaller details. So these are the additional pieces that I've mentioned in the past but haven't shown. This is the lander from the Macrage battle set. This is our terrain set when they released one of the starter boxes, I think 2 back now. There's 5 components to that. They're fairly large in size. These will be finished in a Space Wolves gray with the basing to match the buildings and the board. Obviously, I did a Citadel board for this customer previously as well, and the Rhino will be done in a Space Wolves gray as well. And this is the Battlescape piece from GW, which has dead trees on it and a couple craters. And so all of this has been primed, but because of the amount of time it's taken me just to get the buildings done, I haven't started work on these yet. And these will probably get done in a similar time frame when I get to the objective markers. So that gives you, anyway, a real snapshot look of the work that's been done so far since my last video on the buildings. It took me, as I said, quite a while to base those buildings, a lot longer than I expected, and that's even docking myself some hours for fiddling with my airbrush. I'm hoping that it will move forward a little bit faster, but I won't guarantee that because there's just so much to dry brush, pick out details, emblems, all of that. So, as I make some progress, of course, I will keep you up to date on it as well. If you have any questions or comments on this project, feel free to leave them below. If you want to see some of the earlier discussions about construction of these buildings, you can go back and take a look at some previous videos that I've done. Those should be on my YouTube channel. So, thanks for watching.